This is the meeting of the MCI Advisory Board Land Use Subcommittee. Today is January 21st, 2025. Linda Miller.
Here.
Scott Bates.
Here.
Dan Gainsborough.
Here.
And Aaron Cusker, not here yet, and Peter Lowett present. All right, first we need to assign a clerk for today's minutes. You will be aided by artificial intelligence. I'm not saying where that's coming from, but it's out there. Do we have a volunteer? I think I did last time when we were going in alphabetical order. So whoever is after Peter, I think, Scott, that means you're
okay.
Next up. Great. All right. Thank you, Shannon, for getting us a draft of the minutes from our December 25th meeting, not 25th, maybe our December meeting. I had a chance to go over them and found they were accurate as clerk for that meeting. And I would have no problems recommending their approval as long as we don't include my faux pas of calling our meeting on the 25th.
I move that we approve the meeting of the Land Use Planning and Strategy Subcommittee to the MCI Concord Advisory Board of December 23rd, 2024.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Scott?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes, aye.
Okay, terrific. Next up on our agenda is discussion of the RFP process. Okay, we sent the RFPs out. Shannon, I saw a list with close to 45 names on it. So there is a lot of interest in our proposal. Those interest will be translated into hard, cold proposals by next Monday, and they will be distributed to the full advisory board committee for people to review and rank. Hopefully we won't have 45, but who knows? What's great is the level of interest. We did receive, we did go through a Q&A process that closed over a week ago. We tried to have a subcommittee of the chairs get together to review the responses town staff drafted. We weren't able to secure a forum in that regard, and those responses were sent to the applicants at the deadline, which was last Friday, I believe. So, and then they were also circulated so that we would know what type of questions were being asked. People have a chance to look at those, or were they just sent to the chairs?
No, I didn't look at it.
No, we saw them.
Okay, good. Did folks have any questions or concerns or any issues that were raised by the questions from the broad consultant community?
I thought they were great responses to the questions. Very thorough, very clear, very direct.
Agreed. Thanks to all who participated in that.
Yes, Shannon, if you could convey that to staff, that would be greatly appreciated on our end. All right. So part of what we're going to be discussing are potential questions for the interviews. So the process will be, we get the copies of the of the proposals on, and I'd like to welcome Erin to the meeting. Please note that she arrived in the time for the minutes. And those will be distributed Monday at our full advisory board meeting. And then we have, I believe, until the, little shy on the dates here, I believe until the following Monday to go through and rank them all.
Actually, it's that Friday was what the hope was, so that they could come
Yeah.
in for the interview
Right. So we will,
on Monday.
yeah, so we will be hard at work reviewing and ranking. We have a ranking system that was distributed to the full committee a couple of weeks back. Elizabeth Hughes drafted that. It was a 1 through 5 ranking, with 5 being exemplary and 1 being really, really bad. So we had a nice broad range in which we could rank the sections of the proposals. Town staff has agreed that they will do the reference checks, end of things, and the full committee will get their do their own ranking and send those in, I believe, to Shannon. Would they be going into you?
Which is going to me?
The rank, once we rank the proposals, do we send those into you?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. All right, and then if things go according to schedule, we will be meeting that and notifying the top 3 or 4 point receivers that there will be a interviews the following Monday, beginning of February. Scott has his hand up. Scott?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we're reviewing for that week, finish on Friday, and then the teams that are shortlisted have a week to prepare. Is that correct?
No, they have 3 days to prepare.
Weekend days,
Okay, it's
2 weeks. That was the original timeline, Scott, that we talked about.
I know.
I mean,
I'm singing out loud because if you have, like, say if you have 20 responses, and those 20 people are probably not going to start preparing their teams for an interview until they hear whether they're shortlisted or not, because there's a lot of effort involved in that. And I just, that means you're asking them to prepare over the weekend. Right?
Yeah.
We've got a hard deadline at the end of June.
So
And stuff flows downhill from there.
maybe it's just a way of, I don't know, whether the addendum, just warning people that if they're shortlisted, they only have those few days to prepare, just so they're thinking about the interview in case getting their people scheduled, reserving that time. It means these teams are going to come in with they might come in with 10 people, and they have to make sure that they're available on that date. I'm just wondering if, just that we usually were given more time, but I understand the deadline.
Yeah, and I think we had talked about that before. I mean, your point is well taken, Scott. I think the issue is, as Peter said, time is not our friend. So I think what we said in my recollection of the conversation was that we talked about that people, anyone who got the RFP understands that they'll need to be available for that Monday. And so, yeah, you're right. If it is 45, just use that number, which I don't think it is, but if it's 45, then 42 people are potentially 42 firms are putting several staff members on hold for that Monday. The good news is that it's just that Monday right now,
What I'd recommend then is maybe we shorten it by a day and have our finalists completed by Thursday. So we give them heads up
I think that's a great idea.
Friday morning.
And the other thing is, sorry, my internet's a little choppy, but so I don't mean to be talking on top of you, but I think what we probably even before this point, Scott, I think that it would make sense for, unless Shannon tells me that this is not gonna fly, it would make sense that some group of people, maybe I don't think it can be the whole land use committee, but somehow get together and say, try to make sense out of where all the different people are landing after having reviewed it and the input from town staff on reference checking. It's got to be I think I can't even begin to imagine how this would work unless there's some sort of moment where there's a forum for conversation about people's reaction, but maybe that's just not the way it works in this world.
Shannon?
So I think, Dan and Peter, when we were discussing this final timeline to be included in the RFP, I just had put some tentative calendar holds on my calendar, and I think I sent you a couple too. On Thursday, the 30th on my calendar, I did just block the afternoon hours potentially for a selection committee meeting. And because, right, I don't think you all, there needs to be a meeting for you to discuss this. We are sort of, what happened last week is that the group of people was too large to meet a quorum for in-person only. So I think that's something to think about. And I wasn't sure, Dan, if you planned on discussing the selection committee again on Monday, the 27th. But I think there does need to be a meeting scheduled for you all to discuss.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff packed into that. I do think that I am intending to have a conversation about it on the 27th with the whole advisory board. That said, I was hoping that in the course of today's conversation with this group, the subcommittee, that we would begin to give that some shape and think about what we would recommend and what, in terms of numbers, in terms of process. And so my hope is that we all can come to some sort of consensus and then make a recommendation on how to proceed.
Yeah, well, let's see, we've got the tried and tested committee chairs and steering committee. So that would be 5 right there. At least for the, and we could have all of the advisory board members send their rankings to Shannon and have those redistributed to the attendees. That might be one way to do it.
I think what's interesting about that idea, Peter, if I can jump in there for a second, is that if there's a couple of different scenarios, and maybe there's more than a couple, but the two that immediately come to mind for me is if there's consensus among this subgroup, whatever that ends up being, group of some number, if there's consensus among that group, and then it's supported by some level of consistency among the overall advisory board, that's going to be a relatively easy process, right? Of going down. If there is not, then it's going to be more difficult. And so, and I would imagine the bigger the number of respondees, the more probability there is that there could be divergence. but in the end, it keeps, for me, it keeps on coming back to this time thing. It's not our friend. So I think we kind of have to work with the assumption that there will be some consistency among people's response.
Either that, or we could try and just impress upon the full advisory board committee to meet, take time out for that Thursday. The 30th.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is certainly what concerns me is it is the numbers thing, and I'm not, I don't have a good solution for this as as I'm sort of drawing attention to that. 10 people on the advisory board, some number less hopefully than 45, and just the possible machinations and different combinations. It's and just to even let people talk. If you let everybody talk for 1 minute, that's a lot of time. So I don't know how this is going to work.
Well, my wife used to teach organizational management. She said no committee should be greater than 9 people. That's what the professional literature says. So
that kind of makes sense to me. So I maybe, and then I think this is very much about us setting expectations of the people that are the other members of the advisory board that are not on this Zoom call right now. So I think I think it's almost like try this out. It's almost like another data point. I'm relating it in my mind to the staff reference checking. So it's another, right? And so here's this incoming information, and reference checking is one set of considerations, a full advisory board that making their recommendations. And then the people that we're talking about being on this more focused selection piece are really doing the deep dive. Not to say that others, I imagine that Linda, for example, can go through this stuff in a way that it will take me 5 times, 10 times as long to come to the same things, just knowing a little bit about her background. But be that as it may, I think that if we have a group that has a cross section of sensibilities, then among that sort of smaller group, then maybe those different concerns are adequately represented. And the question is, I guess, do each of those data points have equal weight, or is this subcommittee of the subcommittee somehow given more significance? Just a thought. I guess that's a question.
And a good one it is. Aaron, is it all right if I sort of ask you for your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm still getting a little caught up on, sorry, I was late, the discussion here, but could someone maybe frame the question for me?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how, and Dan, correct me when I go astray, as undoubtedly I will. We're trying to figure out what instructions the subcommittee that's going to be reviewing all of the responses, including all of the responses that the full committee member evaluations that they receive, what sort of weight does that subcommittee have? And
I would go up a couple 100 feet, and I would say for Aaron, because I think Peter's point is right, but I would just step up for a second. And I would say, how do we get from where we are to where we're going to be on Monday, the 27th at noontime, to a narrowed down list by Thursday, picking up on Scott's good recommendation to give people.
Aaron, the interviews are on the following Monday, so
Yeah.
if we pick someone on Thursday, we only have one day to prepare.
Right, so typically what we see is that there's a quantitative ranking system. So, you know, you go through the different aspects of it, and each member provides their ratings, and then those get totaled up in a way that, you know, you have a handful of firms that maybe rise to the top from a, you know, quantitative standpoint. And then, you know, if there's typically, I'm suspecting they're going to be more than three. And then I think maybe the subcommittee then has to take that, you know, that upper group and narrow it down from there. If that makes sense.
That does, thank you.
So Aaron, just to clarify.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point you came in, but if we, for purposes of this conversation, if we say we have three inputs,
Mhm.
and those are the work that Shannon and her staff are doing on the reference checking, the overall advisory board of 10, and this subcommittee, the selection committee, if you will, for lack of a better thing to call it right now. Those are the three inputs. Are each one of those, and you may not even be making a suggestion, but in the quantitative world, are they all equally weighted? Or
I guess what I was thinking was that the 10-member group or whatever, the larger group was going to get some sort of packet on each firm, and that was going to include maybe something about references, their overall proposal, and that each member would need to rank each firm, you know, 1 through 5 or something. And that there could be several areas that they're doing the ranking in. So it could be, you know, overall proposal, references, you know, and then they could be more specific about, you know, how they, you know, we're going to attack scenario development or community outreach or any of the things that we're looking for in the proposal. And maybe there's, you know, whatever, 10 categories that we're evaluating the firms on, and we're providing a ranking. And those all get totaled up. And so presumably you can figure out, you know, who's doing the, you know, resonating the most based on the, you know, 5 is the best, the groups that have the highest numbers. And then you can look at, you know, the members across the board and, you know, add those up and figure out, you know, which groups get the highest rankings. And then I would suggest that the subcommittee, the selection committee, look at those highly ranked groups and decide, you know, which of the highest ranked groups they would interview.
Okay.
That's great, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, it is, and that's very so. Therefore, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon. What we would need to do is there need to be this convergence of when this information is available, because what the only slight clarification I would make to what you said is, yes, every member of the advisory board on Monday will leave that meeting with a large number of proposals from all the people that we receive, right? And they can start reading through it. Same time, the town staff is going to be doing their reference checking. So there is a day, someday out, right? That we would need, maybe it's Wednesday if we're going to meet on Thursday, where, you know, that information would all need to be available, and then we can, you know, make our way through it. Is that
So, just to interrupt, Elizabeth gave us a ranking with the 1 to 5, as Aaron had suggested. One of the areas for getting points is reference. All we need is the town staff to give us the points for that reference area, and we can look at the other sections of the ranking criteria and put in our points there.
that's fine, Peter. Then that same point, but my head is still focused on the same thing, that there's a day before, if we are in fact, this smaller selection committee is going to meet on Thursday, then theoretically, either by that meeting time or ideally a little bit before then, the day before would be great. We would need that information because we need to read through the reference checking and the sort of things that, you know, other than the points, when there may be some, there may be a reason that we want to understand what the responses were to the reference checking.
Yeah,
That makes,
so I think that's what we were shooting for anyway. I would say we, the ask of this group was to come up with the standardized reference checking questions for starters, so we can divvy up the reference checking with, a good few of the town staff who have been working on the MCI project. And my understanding is, each of us will take notes with the conversation that we have, and I wasn't sure that we would be, I think our preference is probably to provide like an update on how they went, and then for you all to make the decision on the points, but we're definitely trying to have that done for Thursday.
Linda has her hand up.
I just had a question. If an application is not complete, I mean, if there's something missing, before we go through it, would it be valuable just to have staff go through things and say, here are 20 applications, but 3 of them are not complete in terms of our requests, they don't qualify, so that we can just sort of move some out of the way if we, if staff somehow thinks that they wouldn't be appropriate to move forward? Or is that just up again to the advisory committee to make that decision? I'm just trying to think if we can
So
Mhm.
get the
something,
wheat from the chaff.
some advice that we got from town council, because also, right, reference checking can be timely. And I think when Megan checked in with council about if we have to do reference checks for all of them, council advised that in the ranking system, if it's mathematically not possible for some of the responses to reach the same amount of points to be considered for the next round, as even if it got like a perfect score on the reference checking, that we wouldn't have to do their reference checks. If we can mathematically sort of eliminate them, then we don't have to do their reference checking. Does that make sense, Linda?
I think it's a question of a little confusion of, will the reference checks be done by the time we're going through the applications, or we're supposed to go through the applications, rank them, and then you will do the reference checks on that basis?
That would make the mathematical eliminations possible. But if we don't have enough time and we need to just start doing the reference checking like from the get-go, then that's what we'll do. But, I think we're all aware of the time constraints.
Right,
yeah, it is challenging, right? Because when you're doing reference
Right.
checking, there's no assurance that you're going to reach the 2 or 3 people that they, or 4, or whatever the number is that they gave, and you multiply it again by 30 or something. It's a lot. It's a lot of
Yeah.
time.
Have we
So
confirmed that the references have to be done? Like, could they be done to just the groups that are shortlisted? Like, does it have to be done for every single, like,
It was included in the selection criteria in general, so yeah,
Okay.
we have to do it for everyone.
Well, or we could do it for none of them until we've done the shortlisting, and therefore everyone would be treated equally. And we
is
could
that
do
true?
the
Is that-
reference checks afterwards.
Is that true, Peter? Because is that accurate? Because if that's true, then that's certainly a consideration.
I would ask Shannon to just run that one, and Elizabeth to run that one by council, see if we could hold off on that until after the rankings, and then use it to further pare folks down.
I'll ask.
Scott has his hand up.
So you're saying doing reference checking after we've shortlisted?
Yes.
So that means you're basically starting the reference checking on the date of the interview. So that's okay?
So, I mean, I know what we have experienced is that sometimes like you could have the interviews and reference checking may not have occurred yet, and the selection could be made based, you have the interview,
Subject to.
yeah, you could kind of add that to your,
I agree.
everything you learned in the interview.
That's why I want to let you know that Shannon and everybody else know that the reference checking would probably continue through the week after that Monday interview. That'll be part of it.
Yeah, because not everyone's home.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So did we agree that the advisory board, this would rank the proposals based on our criteria we set up and provide that ranking to a smaller committee by Thursday morning prior to maybe a Thursday afternoon, small select group gathered in person on Thursday afternoon. And we take the data from the advisory board, their rankings, and then we discuss those. And we also discuss how we are the 5 people who are part of this subcommittee to make the shortlist. Is that correct?
That's consistent with what I heard.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and what I like about postponing or delaying, or if we can in fact do that with the reference checking, is we can then add things that we heard in the interview to follow up on, right? Because that happens a lot in my experience.
Is the ranking, is there like a standardized form we could all like everyone fill out, or like some sort of Excel
Yes.
sheet, so that maybe that was already sent around, but just so that like everyone's ranking on the same questions at the same quantities and all that stuff. So
Yeah, there is a standardized form that
Okay.
Elizabeth sent around.
Is that form consistent with the evaluation criteria? I can't remember the latest RFP, but didn't we create evaluation criteria in the RFP? Did that stay in the RFP?
I believe it's consistent, but maybe Elizabeth
That
is
should,
on.
just to be, you have to be careful with that, because if you're ranking on something else, then you're not following through with what the submitters are expecting for evaluation criteria. You have to be consistent. So we make sure that matrix matches up with the RFP.
Yeah, it will. I think the one Elizabeth sent around was actually what was used for Envision Concord. So I think that was just an example for a similar project.
Yeah.
But we will definitely make sure it's consistent.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, if you could try and get that to us by late Friday, so we can look at it over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I don't know if
Thank
there's
you.
a way to make it digital, so like as everyone inputs their ranking, it easily totals or something, but
A Google Doc, like a Google thing or something?
I don't think we're allowed to use Google Docs, but
Yeah.
Uh-oh, sorry, I didn't say that.
at least if we all had like an Excel sheet or something we were working on.
We can use the clickers that the town meeting is thinking about
Right,
introducing.
right. Beta test them.
Question about Thursday then for this small subcommittee. What was the timing on that, Shannon? You had blocked off?
I just blocked the whole afternoon, but I think we just got to get clarification on who's on the selection subcommittee, and then we can pull a time that will work for everyone. But because if we tentatively want these to be in-person meetings only, I think it would be great if people could just try to hold their calendar that afternoon, so we know people can attend.
Right. So at this point, what we're saying is the 2 full advisory board chairs, and then governance, communication, and land use chairs.
Yeah, I know for the legal and government affairs, I think both Elizabeth and Lee are just they have too many other time commitments going on. So I think Mark is going to be their representative, and I believe John for community outreach.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And I
Okay,
think,
Could you
I
repeat the
think all-
names? Can you repeat the people who are going to be involved?
Yeah, so it's Mark Howell for the legal and government affairs, and John for the community outreach.
And then the rest of the group, the other 5?
Be Dan and Pat and then myself.
I don't think Patrick is going to be available. I might be wrong about that. So I thought it was going to be Scott and Peter
Yeah.
Good, okay.
and John and Mark.
That was my impression.
So I can reach out to that group after this meeting too, to try to get a time decided on, but I think it would be great if there could be a formal vote taken on that at the advisory board meeting on Monday.
You mean who the
Yeah.
people are? Yeah, I'll add that.
Dan, how much time, and Peter, how much time do you think this subcommittee needs on Thursday?
I think Shannon blocked out 1 to 4 or 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
And I have no idea if that's how long it's gonna take. I think I just did that because I made sure to block the room here at the townhouse for it, so that like anytime that afternoon would be available.
Yeah, that's 1 to 4.
Excellent.
1 to 5.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, other questions? Shannon, did you have a list of things that we needed to generate at this meeting?
Yeah, so we definitely need the reference check questions. So we can be ready to do those ASAP, and we do also need interview questions. But you could do that at your all in-person meeting next Thursday if that is your preference.
Okay. So reference check questions, I think there are a couple of sort of standard ones. One is the applicant's timeliness in terms of responding to and meeting deadlines. And a second is the applicant's ability to balance diverse audiences and expectations and examples.
What's that?
I'm open to hearing other questions.
Yeah, I was, is it okay to share questions now, Shannon?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes, some of these consultants sort of will take over, they don't listen to the client. I think, it's listening to the client, were they a good listener and team member, collaborator versus like just taking over the process. And the other one is, did the people that they proposed to you, were they the ones who followed through, or did they replace someone else? Did they put a junior person? Like, did they come through with the people that they actually proposed? And when, I guess my last question you could ask them is like, would you hire them again? Aaron probably has better questions.
My only addition, I think your questions were great, Scott, was I don't know if their references would be able to provide this, but do they have what's their understanding of the applicant's presentation to groups of the public? Are they good presenters to, large public groups, engaging with stakeholders? Probably there's a better way to word that, but just general, knowledge of their work with the public.
How about rate their community engagement?
Thank you.
Maybe give them a 1 to 5 scale.
Yep.
So.
And then the other piece I would say is like, the quality of their presentation materials. Similar 1 to 5 scale, perhaps.
All right, people comfortable with that for reference questions?
Yeah, I would just add one. It's related to one of the ones that was raised, but I like to know when I'm checking references, the person that I'm speaking to, did they actually work directly with the people that are going to be on the project? And what was their relationship? What was their working relationship? Were they a direct report? Were they somewhat removed?
Right.
Just so you can contextualize the feedback you're getting.
Okay, so I have a question.
I often ask what their recommendations would be to most effectively work with the group.
Okay.
When you say the group, when you say, Linda, the group,
Well,
you're talking about
with-
the team that they're
The
proposing.
team, yeah,
Yeah.
with the team.
Yep, good point.
Can you repeat that again, Linda, please?
What would their recommendations be in terms of working most effectively with the team? It's more like, what is their style and how do you best get the best outcome with them? What would you recommend doing to get the best outcome from their efforts?
It's a great. The other thing that I often ask is there anything I haven't asked that I should?
That's a good one. Catch all.
You get a lot of it. People sort of laugh usually initially, and then oftentimes, more often than not, they open up.
That's when you ask and then pause.
Yes, Linda, exactly.
All right, so far we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions. And let's see, that's going to be 45 minutes per firm. So
4 hours.
we probably need to pass that on to staff and tell them they can cut it down to 5.
Well, Peter, don't forget, we're only reference checking 4 firms.
Yes, that's a good point.
Well,
So,
we hope, I need to confirm that.
yeah. All right, so we have sort of a 2-tiered response based on Shannon checking with legal counsel.
Okay.
So tier 1 is if we are only doing 4 firms, we ask all 9 questions.
Yeah.
Tier 2 is if we're checking with all of them, we ask staff to choose 5 from the list or 4 from the list and make sure they're the same 4 that are asked to all of the firms.
Yeah, except in this, I may be running into public constraints, but there if we are fortunate enough to be able to just do it with the final 3 or 4 firms, then, you know, they're not all going to be, hopefully, they're not all created equally. And there could be a question that's unique to their particular circumstance that I would love us to be able to ask. So maybe to your
I
point,
think
Peter,
I think
right?
that's part of the interview process, Dan.
Well, yeah, except what we're talking about is doing the reference check. So it's one thing for somebody to sit, the firm to sit in an interview and say, I did X, Y, and Z. It's likely that that will trigger for us some questions that we would want to ask their, not hear it from them, but hear it from the people that they had been engaged by.
Sure.
And so if it, just to go back to your number thing, if it's 4 or if it's 9, you know, it'd be great to allow room for the one question that's specific to that firm, if that's possible. And maybe I'm perfectly willing to, I hope this is not the case, but I can imagine it's possible that they come back and say, nope, you got to ask the same 5 questions regardless, which would be frustrating, but maybe that's what it is.
Let's add a 10th question to our list, which would be generated by the interview process. Okay. So I think that addresses reference check questions, interview questions. You know, I would feel more comfortable if we sort of wrote those down and sent them all in to Shannon. That way we aren't giving away the game to the very thoughtful and hardworking consultant community is no doubt listening in on this. So,
Do you want the interview questions? You want to tell the advisory board on Monday to prepare those? You want us to send them before the advisory board meeting on Monday? And do you want the advisory board people who are not a part of this meeting to be sending things in too?
yeah, I think I'd want everybody to send in their interview questions, and we can announce that at the meeting. And yes, Shannon, go ahead.
You want to consider setting a number of questions, a maximum number of questions for people to come up with, so there aren't 50 questions that wind up coming in?
I think you're gonna get so many different types of questions. You can almost limit people's questions to 5 and you're gonna get so many.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
I
was going to
would,
say 3.
3.
yeah,
3.
I think 3 is fine.
3 questions is fine.
Right.
You're gonna get some good ones.
Yep. And hopefully we get a cross section. And by the way, along this line, DCAM Paul got us, did have people, I can't remember if I circulated that, or
You
maybe
didn't send
Megan.
it to everybody.
I did.
think I got it. I got one.
Okay. Okay. All right. Which is great. I mean, they took, so yeah, I like what that suggestion was, which is just to get, to have Shannon be the hub for that, or the place where all those things go, and then we can.
Yep. Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
good. All right, we do have 2 other things on our agenda, one of which is, yes,
Sorry to
Scott.
interrupt you. Well, so just confirming, after our Thursday's subcommittee meeting on choosing the 3 or 4 firms to interview on Monday, we will we will let those firms know that night. Versus,
Yeah,
versus Friday.
they will know that night that they will be expected to interview on Monday.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's our goal.
And then the interview questions, I'll compile those that are submitted to me, but those won't be reviewed until the in-person only meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on the interview process before we jump to the Historic Commission and public comment? Well, thank you all for your hard work on this and your thoughtfulness. It's appreciated. We got a lot of work that we're starting here in January, and especially in this next week plus. So thank you all. And all right, we got a request from the Historic Commission to appoint a liaison to the advisory board. Initial letter went to Dan, and it was included in our packets that were distributed. I actually forget who the nominee was, but I'm happy. Is it Lauren? Is it you? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I would be happy to receive a motion to accept Lauren Meyer as the Historic Commission liaison to the Land Use and Strategy Subcommittee.
Don't move.
We have a second.
Second.
I
All right,
should say
thank you.
so moved enthusiastically.
All right.
I just have a question about this. I'm on board. I just want to know, does this open the door for other commissions to want to be a part of this? Like I'm looking through the list of commissions and groups.
I mean, the list of 94 commissions.
Yeah, I'm just
we've got.
wondering, I'm all for this. I'm just wondering, does everybody, other groups going to want to be a part of it?
It's a good question, Scott, and it's something that had some conversations about. I think as a liaison and not as a voting person, I think pretty much anybody is, just as are other public folks on the right now, the call. So it's always available to them,
Okay,
anybody. So
All right.
as a resident, so I think that was the thought process.
all right.
And these guys took initiative. I happen to know Lauren, we full disclosure, we live in the same community. She's got a great mind for planning and landscape issues, and so I think
Okay,
it'd be
great.
nice to have that sensibility.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you.
All right, so Linda has a question, and then a member of the public has his hand raised, Alan Bogosian. So,
Yeah, my question is, has the outreach subcommittee felt comfortable with this? Because I'm not quite sure if this would be stepping on their toes if we have, we don't have on that matrix of committees any that said, strategy and land management. So I'm a little confused as to why this one committee would have a direct link to us and not be going through community outreach. Again, and then it gets kind of back to Scott's question. Well, is everybody going to have to be going now to 3 different committees and wanting to have their voice heard by each of them? Because we do have the outreach committee, and why wouldn't someone want to be a liaison with them?
Well, Linda, if I may,
Well,
Alan,
I was just addressing this to
okay.
Chair, so
yeah,
whatever.
so,
want.
there are 3 of the properties on the site sort of are historic properties. We've got the warden's house, we've got the duplex on the west side of Commonwealth Avenue, and then within the prison itself, there are a number of historical features that are of note. But you've got a great question that you've raised here. Maybe we should accept Lauren contingent upon hearing from the Communications and Outreach Committee.
I agree with that.
And I don't honestly, Peter, I don't know, you know, maybe there's something about the process thing that we just went through of acknowledging it. I think my understanding in the conversations that I had with members of the select board was that they too are concerned about Scott and Linda's point. And so I think their view of it was that just as any resident could participate, that is the participation imagined. This happens to be an informed, well, not to say that others aren't, but you know, there's a level of understanding of some of these issues that may or may not. There's a lot of pretty remarkable people in Concord in terms of this area of interest planning and otherwise.
So Dan,
So
what's
I
the-
don't know that we need to accept, or you know, now that and I put my hand up first, but I don't know that we need to go through that formal a process, because maybe that's where we're running into trouble.
What is the, as a liaison, what is the role and what is the involvement as that liaison, whether it's, see if the housing community wants to you know, to be on it, or conservation, or now it's, you know, historic. What is their involvement with us working with a consultant? Are they going to be a part or have a say in our meetings or working with the consultants? What is the role of the liaison on our committee?
So generally,
Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
no, I was just going to say, generally, if we had questions of historic nature, we would refer to, in this case, Lauren, to help us clarify issues around of a historic nature that the Historic Commission might be able to help better inform our process as we go through it. But I think the process would be, we reach out to her during the meeting and specifically ask her for input. I think that would be one way to handle it. So Lauren has her hand up, but also Alan. Alan
Bogosian,
go
I'm
ahead.
chairman of the Historical Commission. And we didn't write the letter to put a cog in the wheel of the committee, but our charter is to identify any historically significant structures or assets in the community. And that's one of the reasons why we asked to be a liaison on the committee. Not to put a cog in or have a direct vote, but just to assist where we could. And Lauren can add to that.
Lauren?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would just add that, you know, we're here, we would be here to support you, right? And to support your work. And as Dan said, you know, should issues around historic preservation come up in the process of working with the consultant, you know, we would very much like to help you with that. And I think our commission is very, very interested. And so part of this liaison is making sure that they're kept up to speed on where you are. And I think why historic preservation, because it's mentioned clearly many times in the RFP. We know you have verified historic resources on the property, and it's germane to the charge of your committee, which is, you know, land use. So I'll just leave it with that. You know, I personally am used to these big projects. I'm used to public process, and, you know, we'll support you in whatever way works for you. So that's really it. Alan, anything else?
No, that's it. We're not here to be a cog in the wheel.
Right.
We're here to aid.
Right.
I actually think that the conversation that ensued is beneficial, you know, that because it's always oftentimes these things are about expectations, right? And so Scott, I appreciate you raising the concern. And I think we're a little bit out a new frontier in terms of involving Alan and Lauren, somebody like you guys in it. And so we'll see how it goes. We have, and I know everyone on this call understands this, we have tremendous amount of work to complete between now and June 30th. And if you're detecting any resistance, I think a lot of it is coming from that concern. And so if this is my hope for your participation is to enhance sort of efficiencies of things, and whether that's communications back and forth, or you know, as Peter I think said, if an issue arises, you know, this sort of a streamlined way to say, all right, we can get back to you. We understand the significance of this. We'll get back to you by next meeting. And so that's, you know, and if it may come to pass that there's other, I can easily imagine, certainly transportation related matters, for example, I'm just starting at the top, you know, there's a whole bunch of them, but that it may be appropriate and beneficial to invite them in for a particular meeting, which is kind of what has been happening with town staff. And so when we have a tricky issue or a concern, we invite those folks in. So, and that seems to have been beneficial to us in the past. So,
Yeah, I mean, absent your letter, we would have scheduled a meeting with the Historic Commission to, get your input on the process moving forward. But, you know, you've taken the initiative. Thank you. And again, we've voted to accept this subject to the approval of the Outreach and Communications Committee. So, and if by some freak of nature they say, no, it's just going to open Pandora's box, then count on us reaching out to you at a specific meeting to gather your input. And again, as Dan said, hey, it's a public process. You can attend all these meetings with us and make sure nothing slips by. So we appreciate your paying attention, because as we've all noted, this is a really important project for the community, and it's not going to go anywhere without the community's input and support. So thank you. All right, any other public comment? All right, hearing none, thank you all for your time and attention.